What I'd like to do is to start with Alex. I'll start with the people part. And so, Alex, the first question for you is, where does the Kenya ecosystem fall, level 1 to 5? And you already have some of these guiding questions. And then, as an ecosystem, we have about 10 years. What should we start focusing on to grow our human capital or people around the entrepreneur and innovation ecosystem? So I'll mute and stop my video. And then Alex, please go ahead and share your thoughts.
All right, thank you, Dr. James, and hi everyone from wherever you're plugging in from. And for me particularly, I count it up, a huge privilege to be sharing in on this call and looking back, because I've been in the Kenyan tech startup ecosystem about 6 years now, 2 years running the current company we have, FUNDIS, and 4 more working for other different early stage founders that are still in this space and doing really well. But to answer more specifically to Dr. James' question, in terms of where, as an ecosystem we are, and thinking at level 1 from an entrepreneurial very early stage starting, and level 5 being the expertise level, in my view, and basing it on the experience that I have really had the last 6 years, we are at an experimental stage. Experimental stage because a lot of things are changing and changing for the better. I remember, 2014, 2015, when I was fresh out of the university, and it was really a cool thing to, showcase your business card that you are a co-founder of this and a co-founder of that. And it was really amazing back then because things were taking shape. Incubators, accelerators, advisory programs for early stage founders. But looking at where we are now, that's about 6 years now, I feel systems have been more established now. If I think from the people perspective, and especially as an innovator, and an innovator means for me boots on ground, we have made tremendous progress. Tremendous progress in that right now, there is a functional relationship between what you would have traditionally as academia. And I remember in my university days, once my entrepreneurship lecturer nearly kicked me out of class because I asked him if he had in fact ever run any business in his life, and he didn't take that question kindly. But at the point where we are today, I see a very intentional relationship between the academia world, between established corporations that are out there running, and between startup founders and early stage founders. And I think this is really interesting for me because a lot of these linkages are happening at a time when there is no one divide that can work completely in isolation. So for instance, if you think about entrepreneurs, and considering myself as one of those, we have for a very long time wanted what I would call real education and real entrepreneurial training for the real business world. Stuff that works, stuff that you can be able to apply on a day-to-day basis to grow your venture from one level to the next. But on the other hand, if you think from, for instance, the investment side, that as well has been changing over time in that there is a more functional relationship around, VCs also, and whether it's impact investors or investors for a return, even extending what I have always, really loved as patient capital and giving us that time to build the solution. Because from a people's perspective, we have been focusing on providing real solutions for real people. Things that solve and make people's life easier on a day-to-day basis. In fact, one of the reasons why as FUNDIS we ended up entering into this, Whitebox program, because of the various mixes of resources that are in there. So I think right now we are at that experimental stage. Entrepreneurs are thriving. The education for them, the training for them is a bit relevant. there is a working relationship between investors and all these venture builders, whether it's incubators, accelerators, or advisory programs. That is working. And I think going forward, there will be lots and lots of progress in that. As long as these segments are working and working in tandem, there will be lots and lots of solutions that actually meet real people's lives. So, Dr. James, to answer your question, I think we are at an experimental stage. I think what we have today as the Silicon Savannah is very vastly different from what Silicon Valley looks like, but we are getting there.
So Alex, thank you so much. So if we are at the experimenting level, that means that a fair amount of different startup support mechanisms exist, not only for first timers, but also for established. It would also mean that some of the startup founders are risk friendly. But so let's shift that and then ask, so what then should we do for in the next 10 years to grow the human capital so that we can then build this ecosystem as we move into Vision 2030? What are some of the things that we should be looking at from a human perspective? Over.
Yeah, right. Three things for me really stand out. In fact, my comparison, the stage we are now and what the next 5 years to 10 years will look like, I've been comparing it to being seated on a rocket that is about to launch. But three things stand out for me that I think will be very key and very instrumental to what we will have the next 5 years as an ecosystem. One, for me, I think there will needfully be that collaborative effort between the established corporation world and the startup scene. For the simple reason that I think, and in my experience the last 6 years, the rate at which startups and early stage founders are able to, ideate and build and iterate solutions is really fast. And I have not had much experience with the established corporate world. But the little interaction I have had with, I have seen the level and the pace at which new stuff gets done. So I think the next 5 years, one of the things that needs to be very intentional is around having a linkage between the established corporations and startup building together. If they need to co-create solutions one or the other, startups have the agility. The established corporations, they have the manpower, they have the resources, they have the networks, and they have tested systems that can run these things. So I think that's one of the things that will need to happen. Secondly, for me, is the role of the government. First and foremost, for me, the government as a catalyst for growth. And secondly, as the regulator. My experience has been that, and in fact, one of the things that we are really enjoying now at Whitebox is that intentional co-creation around boots on ground as early stage founders and leaders of startups and leaders of businesses that are at that growth stage. And the policy makers, actionable data coming from boots on ground, the guys that are building solutions on a day-to-day basis, and turning those solutions to key decision makers in high places in various agencies. I think that will be very important. Thirdly, and this is where I think the magic will happen, is a training and education for entrepreneurs that is more on steroids. And that for me was the one single thing I picked and wanted to join the Whitebox program for. In that you're not just having people that have taught all their life teaching entrepreneurs, and you're not having people who have just been building and have not taken the time to look at the research, to understand how it works, and even to think about how do you intentionally condense decades of experience into days? Because I think success leaves clues. And if we can be able to model around what those who have gone ahead of us have done and succeeded in, and figure out how to lessen the time that it takes for us early stage founders to learn and build, I think that will be a very interesting perspective. So for me, Dr. James, those would be the three things I think as an ecosystem we need to focus on the next 5 to 10 years.
Alex, thank you very much. I had linkages between startups and corporates, established corporates. I had you mention the role of government, and we have Dr. Catherine here who will speak a little bit about the role of government here shortly, policy supporting startups and how to regulate this space. And I had training and education for entrepreneurs that should be on steroids, similar to the Whitebox program. And thank you so much, Alex, for your comments. And you well put comments and elucidated. So let me jump into Dr. Catherine, because Alex has brought up the role of government. Dr. Catherine, karibu.